Marina's eyes had never flashed with thunder and lightning, and she would never close the door of her apartment to her closest person. She would sooner kick her husband out after them. "Dear mother-in-law," she said, "I would never forbid my mother from visiting here." For the first time in 16 years of her son's marriage, the mother-in-law fell silent. She had never seen her daughter-in-law so furious. "What did I say that was so wrong?" She tried to feign surprise. "You must understand, my dear, I act only in the interests of your family." Marina gave her mother-in-law a frankly hostile look. "Let me ask you, what good will come from my mother not visiting us anymore?" "Darling, she has a very bad influence on your children," the mother-in-law gently remarked. "They are my grandchildren, and I care about what happens to them." Marina's indignation grew along with the sudden awakening of her inner strength. Anna Shemayanovna. This apartment where Marina lived with her husband and two teenage children once belonged to her grandfather, a famous surgeon. Besides his main job, he often went on missions to disaster sites and sometimes performed miracles, saving seemingly hopeless victims. The wonderful four-room apartment was in an elite Stalin-era building where only famous and important people lived. Marina followed in her grandfather's footsteps. She was a surgical nurse, just as talented as her grandfather. Perhaps that's why, even during his lifetime, he loved Marina more than his other grandchildren. When she married at 24, he gave her this apartment. And now, when the mother-in-law tried to establish her own rules here, Marina's thoughts were interrupted by a phone call. "Hello, dear," her husband's voice came through the receiver. "I'm coming home. No need to stop by the store. Everything's fine. Call you later." We had another fight with Anna Shemayanovna. This time, it was serious. "We're not on speaking terms, but there's a problem. Let's talk soon." Marina's mood improved. She was sure Vadim would take her side. He knew how to calm his mother and bring her to her senses. In less than an hour, her husband was home, and soon after, the mother-in-law appeared, looking refreshed from her walk. Marina decided to clarify the situation. She took out the pastries, poured tea, and everyone sat at the table. Vadim looked at the women questioningly. "Son, I told Marinoshka that her mother doesn't have a very good influence on your children," Anna Shemayanovna clarified. Marina felt her irritation growing, even though she tried to hold back. "Your mother spoils the children too much. She always takes their side, even when they should be punished. And how often she enthusiastically talks about her ancestors, how good they were, how much good they did for people. What's the point? These are different times now. Now is the time for strong, decisive people who can stand up for themselves, who have the courage and will to push their rivals and enemies aside. And the kind and generous are being crushed. Is that what you want for your children? When will you and your mother understand that the times of knights and noble ladies are in the past, and now is the time of the cunning and traitors?" Marina asked with bitter irony. "What an interesting division of kindness. Is that something new?" Anna Shemayanovna began. "Dima is doing well in school, attends several clubs. It's obvious he should be rewarded. Why not buy him an expensive gift?" "No," Marina firmly objected. "Let him study, play sports, but I will never allow him to sit in front of a screen all day. It ruins him." "Do you think about the times?" "I think your mother is right." Vadim's unexpected response took Marina's breath away. "But you don't know everything yet. Listen to me," Marina demanded. "Anna Shemayanovna wants my mother to stop visiting us at all. Based on what I've heard, I agree that it's quite logical." Marina couldn't believe her ears. "Are you saying my mother is forbidden from visiting us?" Vadim looked at his wife, then at his mother, and silently left the kitchen. Anna Shemayanovna said, "I'm sorry, I have to go. My son has a class in half an hour. I promised to go with him to buy new sneakers." The hostess quickly cleared the table. Marina was devastated. The wild idea of not letting her mother visit, Vadim's stubborn non-interference, what caused this conflict out of nowhere. Marina approached the sports school. Dima's class would end in 10 minutes. The sneakers were just an excuse to leave the house, but she didn't want to go back there. So she decided to walk with her son to the store and buy him a pair of sports shoes just in case. Dima was surprised to see his mother. He immediately noticed that she was upset and looked anxiously into her face. "What happened?" His voice was tense. "We had a little argument with Grandma," Marina answered wearily. Dima immediately relaxed, smiled cheerfully, and took his mother's hand. "It's nothing. You need to get used to it," he said with relief. Marina thought it was strange how quickly her son's reaction changed. It was as if he had expected a completely different answer, not about a quarrel with Grandma. But what was he thinking about? Dima enthusiastically began to talk about his training and his favorite coach, and Marina gradually calmed down. Suddenly, Dima fell silent. Marina looked at him and followed his gaze. Dima was looking at two girls who were cheerfully chatting near an ice cream kiosk. Marina recognized one of them as Kira, Dima's classmate, whom he had been childishly in love with since the 3rd grade. "What's so funny?" she asked with a smile. "Who's Kira?" Dima asked with an unclear challenge. "Kira. What's wrong with her?" Marina asked, surprised. "Because she's a chicken, that's why. Can you imagine? She's friends with Kamilov from Class B, and Kamilov is dating 2 other girls. I saw it myself. So what? Kamilov, to put it mildly, doesn't behave very nicely. But why is Kira suddenly a chicken? Because only a chicken, knowing she's being cheated on, can put up with it. And Kira knows. I saw her arguing with one of Kamilov's girlfriends." Dima suddenly stopped and looked very seriously at his mother. "Mom, why do girls and women agree to be chickens? Why don't they have any pride?" "Oh," Marina exclaimed, smiling at her son. "You're asking adult questions. You'll understand everything when you grow up." "No," Dima objected categorically. "I don't even want to get involved in such things. I like proud girls. Kira used to be proud. But Kamilov, good for you, son. A man should know what he wants." The next day, Marina had a day off. She decided to dedicate it to household chores and a serious conversation with her mother-in-law. Vadim had left for work, and the children had gone to school. Marina started preparing lunch. "Good morning," the mother-in-law, who had just woken up, entered the kitchen. She looked cheerful and was in a great mood. "Make some coffee, please." Of course, she poured the aromatic drink into cups. "Anna Shemayanovna, let's finish our conversation. I intend to speak frankly and expect the same from you." "I'm ready," the elderly woman replied with a slight challenge, looking intently at Marina. "Anna Shemayanovna, let's start with the fact that I am the sole owner of this apartment. Therefore, only I have the right to decide who can and cannot stay here. I've thought it over and decided to give you 3 days to pack your things and leave my apartment." Anna Shemayanovna was not ready for such a frank conversation. Her belligerence instantly vanished in surprise. "But what about the birthday? It's in a week. We were going to celebrate his 15th birthday. Fine," Marina corrected herself. "Until the birthday, please pack your suitcases. And the day after the celebration, we'll take you to the airport with a ticket. Will you buy it yourself, or should I? When will you pay for the ticket? Show it to me, please. Explain to me why you've suddenly turned so sharply against my presence here," Anna Shemayanovna said. "You complicate everything too much. I'll name just what I don't like. Not only me. You occupy Dima's room. He and Nastia have to share her tiny room. Children have the right to personal space. So, children have the right, but I don't. You do have the right. Moreover, you have your own 2-room apartment. By the way, you've forgotten," Marina added. "When my mother visits us, she categorically refuses to occupy the children's rooms. She always sleeps on the couch in the living room, even though the children are ready to give up their rooms for her." The offended mother-in-law took her cup of unfinished coffee and stood up. "Vadim should pack his suitcases too." "No, I was hasty when I said that he would follow you. We're fine, especially when you're not around. I'm sorry, but we agreed to be completely honest." The mother-in-law poured herself some coffee and went to her room. Marina felt she had won this round. In the evening, she needed to consolidate the result to ask what flight the mother-in-law had booked. The mother-in-law quickly got ready and, without saying a word to Marina, went somewhere. She returned home late. The whole family was already gathered, waiting for her to have dinner. She entered the living room, where Marina and her daughter were sewing beads onto Nastia's dance costume. Vadim was sitting there with his laptop. "Good evening. It's cold outside," she said. "You wanted to check. Here, look." She thrust her smartphone in her daughter-in-law's face, where there was an electronic ticket. Marina studied the flight number, date, and time. "Vadim," she tore her husband away from the internet. At 6:10 p.m. your mother has a flight. Try to free yourself to take her to the airport. If not, I'll send her by taxi." "And Tadia?" Nastya asked. "Yes, dear. We talked little at dinner, but from the looks of Marina, Dima, and Nastya, it was clear they were satisfied with life." Dima's birthday was celebrated in 2 stages. On Wednesday, they gathered at home in a small family circle. On Saturday, they rented a table at a cafe for his friends. Today was Wednesday. Marina had a lot to do by the evening. Everything was ready. A stunning cake stood in the fridge, a large poster with congratulations hung on the wall in the living room, and many colorful balloons were hung in different places in the room. The atmosphere was festive. In the evening, Nastya helped her mother set the table, and the family sat around it. They began to congratulate the birthday boy one by one, say nice things, and present the prepared gifts. It was Anna Semyonovna's turn. Smiling broadly, she said, "Dimuli, I think my gift will please you very much. Vadim, help me." They left the room and returned a minute later. The father was carrying a stunningly beautiful gaming computer, sparkling with colorful lights. "Here," said the beaming grandmother, looking at her grandson. "Do you like it? It's already set up, you can sit down and start playing right away. The design is amazing." The mother-in-law clearly expected enthusiastic reviews of her gift. Dima looked questioningly at his mother. "Mom, are you allowing me to play?" Marina, trying with all her might to appear calm, said, "You haven't thanked for the gift." Silence hung over the festive table. Everyone remembered well that as a medic, she knew such hobbies often ended badly. She didn't want the meaning of her son's life to be limited to the narrow confines of games, baits, and victories in computer battles. But she firmly decided not to spoil the atmosphere of the family celebration and allowed her son to accept the gift. The next day, Vadim didn't go to work. He helped his mother pack her luggage. Marina was very surprised that they went into seclusion several times and talked very quietly. But as soon as she approached them, they fell silent. Peacefully, obviously because they looked at life too differently. "So if I've offended you in any way, don't hold a grudge. I very much hope that we've understood each other well," the mother-in-law said with resentment. The women hugged coldly and said goodbye. In the evening, there was an almost festive atmosphere at home. The children were moving things into his room, arranging everything in its place. Nastya was arranging soft toys on the shelves for her grandmother's visit. Marina prepared dinner and called the family to the table. Vadim and Nastya came immediately. She went to look for Dima. She found him in the hallway, rummaging through his father's phone, which he had left in his jacket. "What are you doing?" she asked in a whisper. "Nothing." Her son, caught off guard, was embarrassed. "Don't tell Dad." "Okay, but only if you tell me what you were looking for in the phone." "I'll tell you, but not now. I'm starving like a Wolf." "Okay, Wolf, wash your hands and come to the kitchen." Marina relented. Her son quickly finished everything his mother had served him for lunch and immediately ran out of the house. It was clear he was carefully avoiding the conversation. Vadim surprised his wife today. He came home from work quite drunk. He had never had problems with alcohol before. He always drove to and from work by car. Today, he left the car in the company parking lot and returned home on foot. "Something happened. What did you celebrate with Bacchus?" Marina asked. "You can't even imagine how tired I am." His voice and gaze expressed such a strong degree of fatigue that Marina immediately believed him. "Maybe you should take a vacation," she suggested to her husband, surprised that she hadn't noticed before how truly exhausted he was. Today, Vadim looked terribly tired and lost, unhappy, with a dull gaze. He even seemed hunched and looked 15 years older than his age. "Tell me what happened to you," Marina insisted. "I'm tired of living," he said. Marina felt uneasy from Vadim's words and the way he said them. She smiled at him. "We're fine. Even if you have some problems, it's temporary. Any difficulties end sooner or later." The wife tried to cheer up Vadim a little. "Oh no, there are problems that cannot be resolved. You're a happy person." Vadim looked at her with envy. "You don't know such problems." Dima peeked into the room. "Mom, are we going to have dinner?" Marina noticed how unfriendly her son looked at Vadim. She firmly decided that in the morning, she would interrogate both of them thoroughly. Staying in the dark when something was happening nearby was no longer an option. The nighttime call came when everyone was fast asleep. Vadim's phone rang insistently. He picked up the receiver. He listened silently. His face clearly showed resignation and submission to fate. Finally, he said briefly, "Do as you see fit," and silently put the phone on the nightstand. Then he touched his wife's hand, checking if she was asleep or not. Convinced that Marina had woken up, he stunned her. "My mother is coming to visit us. She misses us very much. I knew she would do something like this." "Right on time," Marina said with irony. "What do you mean?" Her husband silently smiled at Marina. "Let her come. We agreed that she can visit us anytime, just not for months as usual, but for a couple of days. That's not burdensome at all. But we can go out to eat somewhere else." Anna Shemayanovna always knew when to pause in a dialogue. This time, a very serious pause was needed. The mother-in-law hadn't even unpacked her suitcase. Her husband took his son's sports bag and began to pack his things into it. "What you don't take, I'll collect, pack, and send later when you send the address," she told her husband. Dima, who had returned from his class, looked into the room. Marina smirked at him. "You were right, son. Being a chicken, not respecting yourself." He didn't need to explain anything to her. She understood what he had been looking for in someone else's phone. A few minutes later, Vadim, his mother, and Vika left the apartment. "Mom, did you kick them out?" Nastia's big eyes looked at her mother in confusion. Marina was embarrassed. "No, sweetheart. I offered them to have dinner, but they refused." She tried to justify herself unconvincingly. "But will they come back?" Her daughter continued to question. "I don't know anything yet. I need to think carefully." She felt a ringing emptiness inside herself. The children went to eat something. Her head wasn't working well. "I guess my brain is also on vacation," she joked clumsily, but no one smiled in response to her joke. The next morning, Marina took the children to school. She perfectly understood that she had dropped out of life for a few days. She felt nothing, thought poorly, and wanted nothing. In such a state, it was impossible to work. She called work and arranged for unpaid leave. The woman lay down on the couch and stared at the ceiling. She smirked. "It's not even interesting to me where Vadim's daughter came from. How old does she look?" "Like Nastia, 12. Marina began to remember that period. Everything was wonderful. They rested abroad before Nastia's birth, renovated the apartment. Marina fell into a heavy sleep. She dreamed that Vadim was driving beautiful women in his car, dreamed of a village where important chickens walked the streets, chased by teenage girls. Marina didn't notice that she had slept until evening. She woke up because Dima was shaking her by the shoulders. "Mom, are you okay?" Marina woke up, smiled, but immediately remembered what had happened, and the smile slid off her face. "Yes, I'm fine." "Is it evening already?" She looked at the clock. "Nastia will be here soon, and I haven't prepared dinner." Marina got up and hurried to the kitchen. "I'll wash my hands and at least make you some tea," she said to her son. She quickly chopped vegetables and put vegetable stew on the stove, made herself tea, and made her son a sandwich. "Come on, tell me, son. Did you know about your dad's affair for a long time?" "Almost a year," Dima admitted. "Why didn't he tell me anything?" "For 2 reasons. He didn't want to upset you and hoped that dad would leave that woman. But recently, I found out that they have a daughter. It became clear that he wouldn't leave them. It was obvious that you would be even more upset if you found out about the girl. So I kept quiet." Marina perked up. "Nothing, son. Life goes on. It's hard now, but everything passes. I just never thought your father was capable of betrayal, of cheating. I never once in my life was jealous of him. I trusted him, maybe even more than myself. Well, never mind. We'll survive. What have you decided? Divorce?" Marina smirked. "No, I'm not a chicken. And seriously, I'm not thinking clearly yet. The offense is still choking me. Such decisions need to be made with a cool head. But I think it's still a divorce. You understand, it's not even about the betrayal. It's just that Hayes disgusting to me now. I don't want to, and can't even touch him. I'm afraid of getting dirty." "Mom," Dima even jumped up, hugged his mother tightly, and sat down next to her. "We're so alike," he said enthusiastically, looking at her. "When Kira touched me recently, I felt like a toad had jumped on my hand." They both laughed. The tension completely disappeared. Life goes on. The next morning, Marina felt rested. She weighed everything and decided to file for divorce. She needed to do it as soon as possible. And if so, she needed to gather her husband's things. That's what she did until lunch. There were a lot of things. She packed clothes and shoes into bags, dealt with the tools, decided to keep a hammer and a few screwdrivers for herself, and packed the rest into large boxes. She really wanted as few things as possible in the house to remind her of Vadim. A phone call made her tear herself away from her work. It was her mother-in-law. "Marinoshka, don't hang up. I really need to talk to you." "Don't worry, I'm not going to come to you. There's a wonderful coffee shop in the next building. Let's meet there. When can you come?" Marina knew that the mother-in-law wouldn't let go. "In half an hour," she said calmly. "Agreed, my dear. See you soon." From Anna Semyonovna's face, Marina understood that she hadn't slept all night. They sat in a cozy corner of the cafe. The table was a little away from the others, and nothing prevented them from talking calmly. "Marina, I understand that we're seeing each other for the last time. I came to confess everything to you. Even so, now you know that Vadim had another woman, by whom he is Vika. It was I who insisted that my son switch his attention from you to her. I always suspected that you weren't the kind of daughter-in-law I dreamed of, but I hoped you had come to terms with it. It turns out, no." The mother-in-law's confession was unexpected. "When you got pregnant with Nastya, I had serious doubts that Vadim was her father. And when you gave birth to her almost 3 weeks early, I was almost sure that you had cheated on my son. Such offense took hold of me. Now it's clear why you didn't visit us during my entire pregnancy," Marina realized belatedly. "At that time, a wonderful girl, Nadashenka, worked in my department." The mother-in-law continued her penitent, kind speech. "She was friendly, but most importantly, she loved Vadim very much. They met when he sometimes came to my work. But I advised her to be bolder." The mother-in-law looked guiltily at her daughter-in-law. "Vadim always listened to me. Apparently, he took my doubts about him being Nastya's father very seriously. You see how everything turned out. They got closer with Natasha. I always thought it was good when children and parents were close. But sometimes it turns out differently." Marina commented on what she had heard. "Ah, Marina, how many times I regretted what I did. I didn't know then that in Natasha's family, mental illness was passed down from generation to generation. At first, everything was fine, but as soon as she gave birth to Vika, the problems began." Marina sincerely pitied this woman who had caused so many problems for her son. "Do you think why I exchanged my Moscow cottage first for a 4-room apartment in the capital, and then a 4-room for a 2-room in the province? Money was needed for Natasha's treatment. Her parents had died by then, and all the expenses fell on me and Vadim. So it turns out that Vadim didn't have an illegitimate child. He lived with 2 families, with 2 wives. That was too much, and Marina once again convinced herself of the correctness of her decision to file for divorce. It's one thing when a fleeting, accidental affair results in an illegitimate child, but quite another when the betrayal lasts for years, with 2 families. And when your Nastya was 1 year old, Natasha was about to give birth. She persuaded Vadim to leave you. But to clear his conscience, he decided to do a DNA test and found out that Nastya was his real daughter. And we doubted it so much. Then my son chose you, not Natasha, but he never left her. Well, you're both talented actors. And I didn't notice anything. It's because you had 2 children in your arms, little ones. There was no time to look around. And I'm not good either. And you know, I was against your mother visiting you because I thought she suspected something about Vika. I was afraid she would let it slip to you." The elderly woman looked guiltily at her daughter-in-law. "For the truth, of course, thank you, Anna Semyonovna. But for today, that's enough. I need to digest what I've heard." Marina paid for both of them and stood up. "Wait," the mother-in-law held her back. "My son and I have paid dearly for our sins. And we had to hide the truth from you. Do you think we want you to pity us? You won't get it," Marina asked coldly. "You know very well, Anna Semyonovna, I can forgive a lot, but never betrayal. And such a sophisticated one. Is divorce inevitable?" the mother-in-law asked hopelessly. "Yes," Marina confirmed calmly and firmly. Moms at home, Marina impatiently awaited her son. Recently, they had become especially close. She was pleased that Dima took care of her, spared her feelings, and tried to cheer her up as much as he could. But there was one question she couldn't find an answer to. Maybe Dima knew something. Finally, hearing how the door opened, she thought it was her son because her daughter usually called if she knew someone was home. The thought flashed that she needed to change the locks. The keys remained with Vadim and the mother-in-law, and she didn't want to see them here without an invitation. Marina went to meet Dima and was very surprised to see her mother with him. Barely touching her mother, Marina burst into loud sobs, burying her face in her shoulder. The lost Dima ran to the kitchen for water, but his grandmother just shook her head and hugged her daughter even tighter. Finally, she calmed down. "Now, let's have some water," she commanded her grandson. Galina Pavlovna smiled. "Good girl. You've cried out your tears, the best medicine that can heal an offended woman's soul." She affectionately stroked Marina's hair as if she were a little girl. "Feeling better? You can't even imagine how glad I am to see you. I feel like a 5-year-old girl." "That's what a mother is for, to calm her child when they're upset," Galina Pavlovna said lovingly, looking into her daughter's eyes and smiling. "So well stand at the door like this?" Marina suddenly realized. "Mom, let's get off the road, take a shower, and then talk. I have so much to tell you." "Yes, I already know a lot. Dima told me. And even before Dima, I knew about a lot." Marina shook her head. She put the finishing touches on her robe, wrapped a towel around her head, and Galina Pavlovna came into the kitchen, where her daughter and grandson had set the table and were thinking about how else to treat their beloved guest. That's enough, she stopped them. "I'm not hungry at all. You'd better tell me how you think we should live on." "Mom, everything has been thought over. If Vadim had told me everything right away, we could have worked out some rules. But he chose to live without rules. Now nothing can be fixed. Don't try to talk me out of it. I want a divorce. And where did you get the idea that I'm going to stand up for him? I'm on your side. He had more than 10 years to somehow confess to you. There shouldn't be such serious secrets in a family. You can make mistakes, but you can't lie and evade. And he's been doing that for the last few years." Marina was very pleased that her mother was on her side. It gave her confidence and strength, as if a huge heavy stone had fallen from her shoulders. She received confirmation that she was doing the right thing. Mom was never wrong. "Listen," Marina asked her loved ones, "I have a complete picture, but there's one thing I don't understand. How did it happen that Anna Shemayanovna showed up in our place with Vika? Do you know anything about this?" Galina Pavlovna and Dima exchanged glances. "Of course we know," confirmed the omnipresent son. "It's just that Grandma, the other Grandma," he clarified, looking at Galina Pavlovna, "ran out of money and patience. She's long wanted Dad to tell you about Vika and for the girl to live with us. But Dad was afraid to tell you, so Grandma threatened that if he didn't confess, she would tell you herself." Natasha was terribly jealous of Vadim. With her mental state, that's a disaster. She was in and out of hospitals. When she was normal, she visited us, and Natasha with Vika lived in her apartment. And when Natasha was hospitalized, she returned home and lived with Vadim's granddaughter. This suited Dad, but not your grandmother. So she put everyone before the fact by coming here with her granddaughter. And I feel sorry for Vika, Dima confessed. Dad seemed ashamed of her. That's why he hid her. It's ugly, not manly. Dima, I suspect a great man will grow out of you. Just don't lose your principles, Marina said, looking at her son with tenderness and pride. I agree, Galina Pavlovna spoke up. I also think it would be right if the children communicate. After all, they are relatives. I'm all for it. I think Nastia will be very happy. She just lit up with joy when she met Vika. And you, son, mom, didn't it seem to you that Vika and Nastia look very similar, both externally and in character? It's true that Vika is somewhat withdrawn and shy, but I think Nastia can have a good influence on her. So I'm for it too.